Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 podcast, live stream edition. I am your host, Stephen Nagishi, and tonight is a very special one. We got not one, not two, but three guests all on screen tonight. The one to my right, as you know, is Bears YouTuber Rishab Skiri from DaWindyCity Productions. The one below me is somebody that I think every Bears fans are very familiar with this name. It is the Windy City Gridiron SB Nation page, the editor-in-chief, Lester Wiltfong Jr., and also below Rishab is somebody that is starting to gain a lot of attentions and followers. If you're a Chicago Bears fan, it is actress or actor in this case. Unfortunately, stuck in Wisconsin, where she's currently residing. It's Miss Alexis Jade. Everybody, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. We have a lot to talk about because obviously today was the NFL Combine press conference, and Ryan Poles, depending on who you ask, spoke and revealed a lot about. So we have a lot to talk about tonight, but. I also want to make sure that, there is a tornado warning in the state of Illinois right now. And both Lester and Rishab is kind of caught in the, eye of the storm, if you will. And, the internet connections might be a little bit spotty and, they might have to log out and join back in, or if they're unable to join because of the warnings. I want to apologize to our guests and those who are tuning in ahead of ourselves, and hopefully you will all understand the situation. And if anybody's from the state of Illinois, I pray that everybody will get through tonight, safe and sound. So let's start with the press conference that everybody is talking about. I'm sure, you all had a chance to caught up with the, the press conference and the snippets here and there on, social media. Your main takeaways from the media scrum today. Let's start with you, Lester, as the, the editor-in-chief of the website devoted to the Bears fans. What do you make of today's press conference? And what was your biggest takeaway from listening to Ryan Poles today?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't too surprising. I mean, he kind of said as much as he could say without really saying anything at all. I mean, that's just kind of what Ryan Poles is doing at this point. I mean, it's right now they're just out there posturing. He's not going to tip his hand. I'm sure he has a pretty good idea what he wants to do, but he's going to keep that close to the vest up till it's really time to make a deal one way or the other. But yeah, I mean, he's different. I mean, he's a different Ryan Poles than we saw when he first started his career in Chicago. The one takeaway for me is how we did mention that, if something was going to happen with the trade with Justin Fields, he will make sure he does right by him. I think this kind of shows you how much, Justin Fields is just beloved in the locker room, by the whole scouting staff, by the coaches. He's just a great guy. And that's why it's such a passionate thing right now with fans, because fans don't want to see their favorite player go, and he's just such a good dude. So yes, that was my big takeaway right there.
For me, I think a lot of people felt, and I believe that this was probably the first time that a lot of Bears fans feel that this is when Ryan Poles kind of maybe tipped his hands about maybe trading Justin Fields. Last year it wasn't emphatic that he's coming back, and they were open to trading their first overall selection. But unfortunately, third year in, and we'll get into the debate about the team that he has versus the team that maybe Caleb Williams is about to join in a moment. But Rishab, do you feel like this was probably the first time that the Bears fans who have been rooting hard for Justin Fields and feel that he had been kind of done wrong by the organization ever since he joined, that this is probably his days are officially now numbered?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't say that per se, like explicitly, like you kind of had to read between the lines, but at least compared to last year, I think he was a little bit more like open to the fact that he might be trading Fields. I know he still said like either all options are on the table. We still don't know what we're doing right now, but
Yeah.
we talked about like doing right by Justin Fields, right? Where like I feel like last year he didn't even like mention the possibility of that happening, even though there was a possibility of that happening last year too. I feel like this year it's more real, just based on the reports we're getting, based on like how Ryan Poles is kind of operating himself. But at the end of the day, it's all just guessing right now. Like he could be 100% lying, like always, happens every single year. GMs lie all the time during this time, but Ryan Poles has actually been pretty like honest with the media many times as well, like over the past couple of years, where he has actually said like what he is thinking, what he's trying to do, and obviously he's not going to reveal his whole decision right here in front of the media. But I thought I thought it was more like leaning towards the fact that he will be trading Fields, but we're gonna have to wait and see, obviously. And I think a decision is coming pretty soon because he did say that he wants to get a deal done or decide, in the next. He said tomorrow. I'm not sure if he like meant that literally, but he's gonna try to decide as soon as possible, obviously. So we'll see what happens.
Jade, you have your own channel, and obviously a lot of people have been following you with your opinions on the whole matters right now. Where do you stand on this whole debate about Fields versus Williams, and what are you feeling right now emotionally as we near the the NFL free agency and the draft talks now start to take shape now?
Well, I mean, I definitely, I definitely stand on I love Justin Fields, like as a person for sure.
Yeah.
As a player, I've thought that I've stood by I would prefer the Bears keep him and just build like a mega roster around him. And that's just my opinion on what I would want them to do. But I've also always said that I don't know if that's going to happen. And I would still be happy if we drafted Caleb Williams. I would even be happy if we drafted Drake May, which has been a little bit of a controversial take. But I don't know. Like, I mean, emotionally, I'm okay. Like it was, today's presser really didn't persuade me one way or the other on what I think Poles is going to do. Cause like everyone else already said, he kind of just talked around it in ways, and you could interpret it how you want to interpret it, but nothing was really given away. And, I think we've known that since the season started, even before we even knew we had the number one pick, that if we got it, the potential was there because this year's draft class is way different than what it was last year. Like that's the biggest difference. So yeah, I mean, I stand by, I still think keeping Fields would be my preference, but overall I'm all right.
Yeah, I know there are pros and cons to, keeping Fields and then also drafting Caleb Williams. We'll get to the Williams situation in a moment, but Lester, as somebody who covered the Bears and writes on a regular basis, if I were to ask you, give me a compelling reason or reasons to keep Justin Fields, what would you say to those who are done with Fields and ready to move on with Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the only real argument to keep him is if Ryan Poles meets with the top quarterbacks and decides that they're not the guy. I mean, he has to know by now, after seeing Justin Fields, there's 3 years of tape on him. Yeah, and look, it was a bad situation year one with Nagy, bad situation year one with Flus and the rebuild, bad situation year three with Luke Getsy and that ridiculous scheme and whatever they're trying to do. But that's the cards that was dealt. That's what you got to deal with. That's what they have to judge it based off. So if Ryan Poles looks at that and says, "Hey, look, I see another jump coming. I know he's beloved in the locker room. His teammates believe in him. The coaches, and the scouts and everyone says, he's the best option." That's the only way I see it happening. I mean, I just think the writing's been on the wall here for quite some time now. That's, I mean, there's been pretty much, while the reports are all nothing definite, they've all kind of slanted towards, it seems like the Bears are going to draft a quarterback at one.
Yeah. Rishab, if Justin Fields were to come back, are you confident in the Bears' ability to, with the new offensive staff, that, obviously Shane Waldron's experience working with Geno Smith certainly, gives a leg up, and it makes sense that, if Justin Fields was brought back, that he can probably make Justin Fields even a better quarterback than what Geno Smith has been with Seattle. But where are you in the the argument on the Fields versus Williams right now?
Yeah, and I think what's actually going to happen is that they're going to draft Caleb. So like what we want doesn't really matter to Ryan Poles. But yeah, arguing like both sides, you can make an argument for both sides, right? Because Caleb Williams is a very talented quarterback prospect that's, coming from a program that has, maybe not the program, but the coach has produced other NFL level quarterbacks that have had some success in the NFL. He's had really good moments in college football, and you get to start over with a rookie contract too, which I think is pretty important because it gives you obviously more cap space in the future to build, a better team around that quarterback. But on the flip side, if you do keep Fields, you can trade back for number one and get probably the biggest haul in NFL history, which could be, Marvin Harrison Jr., future first round pick, star player, right? So you could build an absolute like super team around Fields, where even if Fields is not, top 5, top 10 quarterback, maybe it doesn't matter at that point because you have such a good team around that quarterback. But I just think that the way Poles is going to roll is he's going to go after his own guy at this point, right? Like he passed on the quarterback last year. I don't think he's going to do that again after seeing the success that CJ Stroud had last year, which again, I don't think passing on Stroud was a bad call back then because you got
to push back on.
Excuse me, my apologies there.
No worries. You got DJ Moore, you got Darnold, right? You got to actually build your team. But this time around, I do think he's going to go after his guy because the team is more built up at this point where it does make sense to, insert a rookie quarterback into the mix.
I apologize. Maybe I should have played this clip in a little bit to add more context. This was Chris Canty on ESPN radio, or ESPN's one of the Get Up, talking about Fields' situation.
When we start talking about the Chicago Bears roster, they do realize after they traded for Montez Sweat, from week 10 on in the second half of the season, they had the best scoring defense in the NFL. The best. Nobody was better than them from scoring defense. The Chicago Bears had the best scoring defense in the NFL. That was the catalyst for them winning 5 of their final 8 games. They were top 3 in defensive efficiency, top 3 in defensive EPA. So Matt Eberflus has done a good job with that unit, that side of the ball. And a young quarterback's best friend, it's not a tight end. It's not a number 1 wide receiver. It's a defense that can create field position and extra possessions. And that's what the Chicago Bears defense did. So this notion that there isn't enough talent on this roster to allow Justin Fields to have success, it's just not true. I mean, they have 2 solid bookend tackles on the offensive line in Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright. They have a number 1 wide receiver in DJ Moore. They have a really good tight end in Cole Kmet. They have a solid running game, and it has been since Justin Fields has been there. I don't understand why we think that Justin Fields doesn't have the requisite supporting cast that it takes in order to have success as an NFL quarterback, especially if you think this guy is worth passing up on the number 1 overall pick, not once, but twice in 2 quarterback-rich drafts.
All right, Jade, you heard the argument there. Do you buy that notion that, the team is, certainly ready? Or do you feel like, certainly there's still something that was, missing on this team that maybe Justin isn't getting a fair share when it comes to, the talent level overall that he has had to deal with?
I mean, I get the point he was trying to make, and to an extent, I agree with him. Like, having a good defense is the quarterback's best friend, and the defense did get much better week 10 and on. But, I mean, he said it from week 10 on. And from week 10 on, after Justin Fields came back from injury, the Bears had a winning record. So, like, if you look before that, it's true. We didn't have a winning record, but the defense also wasn't good the first half of the season and didn't get good until halfway through his 3rd year. So, like, that part's true. And then saying Justin Fields, like, the running game has been good because Justin Fields has been the Bears running game. So, like, I don't know. Like, I get the point he's trying to make, but I'm also kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of, there's some things you can debate there, but overall, I think I agree with him. I just also think going forward, like, yeah, you would have liked to see Fields have a little bit better numbers, do a little bit more with what he had. But at the same time, I would not be happy if this was the roster for the offense going into next season, no matter who the quarterback is. Like, we need improvements on the offensive line and the talent around the quarterback for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Justin had to deal with ever since he came into the league is quite tragic. We all remember his very first professional start in Cleveland, which he was sacked 9 times, and that kind of spelled the beginning of the end for Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. The following year, they hired a new GM in Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus as the defensive coach, as the head coach. They only interviewed 2 candidates for the offensive coordinator, and we all know that it was Luke Getsy who got the job, and the team was in just shambles financially, salary cap just completely, over the cap. Ryan Pace was desperate and just trying to, push the cap as far as much as possible, and the lack of draft capital certainly did not help the Bears. And we all know the 2022 3-14 season. Basically, only his running ability really kept the Bears interested, all of us, that season. And last year, Bears could have been 10-7, but instead it was 7-10 because of the 3 games that the Bears blew in the fourth quarter. So, it's kind of unfair to put all of this on Justin. And I'm not saying that Justin is untouchable. There's certainly a lot of criticism that warrants his performance. His fourth quarter numbers is obviously been a major issue, where we saw him take sacks and throw picks that unfortunately ended the comeback and all of that. So, yeah, I think it's pretty much, the way Ryan Poles was presenting himself in a press conference today, that, when we trade Justin, and then the fact that they've been in constant communications, I think it's safe to say that, the Justin Fields era, unfortunately, really never took off. And, we'll never be able to find out how good of a quarterback he could have been with Chicago, here in Chicago, Lester. And that, and obviously the discord that we have between those who support Fields versus those who want to see Caleb Williams has really gotten out of control, to a point where we've seen a lot of unfortunate name calling, and and there's also, to a degree, where sometimes racism has played a huge role in this discord. And as somebody who runs a very popular site, Lester, what is your overarching message to the Fields versus Williams fans who are arguing constantly on Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, it's prevalent, like you said, on Twitter. It's even more toxic on Facebook. I do not recommend going to Facebook for any reason. I have to go there once in a while because obviously we have a page. So, but Facebook is way worse. Our comment section at WCT gets riled up too. But yeah, I mean, it has been the talk of everything, and it's very, very political how it's kind of turned. It's really strange how it's like 2 sides. It's like, like I've done several shows and stuff, and whenever a question is asked, I'm just a Bears fan, Yeah. If they keep Fields, hey, I'm down with it. Let's go. Let's see what happens. If they trade and go for a rookie quarterback, whether it's May or Williams or Daniels, JJ McCarthy, whoever it is, I'm going to support the Bears regardless. To me, it seems like the writing's on the wall. Like I said, they're going to do what they're going to do, but it's crazy. And we've already seen it in the last few weeks. Some of these guys that are really, just angry and just spewing venom on Twitter and stuff, they're slowly starting to look for their out. They're oh no, I always liked Caleb too. Here's a tweet from 2020 where I said I liked them. Okay, it's just like, what are we doing here? Everyone knows you were an asshole for the last 2 months. Don't try and change your stripes now. I mean, that's I never got involved with it. If someone was like that way, I wouldn't interact with them. I'd mute them. I have no time for the drama.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think. No, it's not. It's not even worth arguing over, something of this nature. I think, and I said this before on the other streams that I've done in the past, that and also on my Twitter handle. If anything, that anger should be really directed towards the Chicago Bears organization, Jay. That the Bears have constantly mismanaged the quarterbacks head coach combination. We've seen that with John Fox and Mitchell Trubisky, and we've seen that with Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy when pairing with Justin Fields, and all the coaches been fired after the rookie season. So if anything, I think we should be so angry, more so than the way the Bears have handled this. And now it seems as though we're going to repeat the same thing over again with Caleb Williams more likely, and pairing of Matt Eberflus, and certainly the history doesn't it hasn't been kind to the Bears and Bears fans.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's like I've said something similar of a few times, and I feel like because I see the opposite end of it, right? Because I think it's obvious that I lean towards wanting to keep Justin, and people take that and run with it, or if I say something nice about Caleb, suddenly it's like, how dare you can't say anything nice about him. And I'm like, I've never said I didn't like him. I just said I had doubts, like anyone would, like he's not a sure thing. But yeah, I think like anytime I've said it's an organizational failure, like the reason Justin Fields failed is like, I really do think Justin Fields has a much higher ceiling that we haven't tapped into yet. And I also still think it's there. And I also will go back and think, like, what would have happened if Dalton never got hurt? What would have happened if we didn't hire Luke Getsy as OC? Like, there's so many what ifs that could have played a huge role in developing Fields into the franchise quarterback, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. Like, you don't have to want to see Fields be the quarterback of 2024 and beyond to be able to admit that. And yeah, I agree.
All right, so let's move on to the conversation of the Justin Fields' future. Where will Fields ended up, and what is the compensation that we can get? Rishab, let's start with you. Where do you see Fields ended up, and what can we realistically do you see the Bears getting, and when do you see him being traded by?
Yeah, there's a report from NBC Sports Chicago, I think just like an hour ago or 2 hours ago, where they mentioned that the Atlanta Falcons are the leading suitors right now for Fields, which I'm not sure how true that is, but I think the Atlanta Falcons could be a good destination because obviously, Fields is from Atlanta, so he'd be going back to his hometown. We got our boy Ryan Pace there with the Atlanta Falcons. He drafted Justin Fields, so that connection kind of makes sense. And the Atlanta Falcons also have a really good team for Fields to go into right away and succeed right away. So I feel like Fields also would be, a big fan of going there. And as for maybe talking about some other potential suitors too, like I think Steelers also could make some sense. Pittsburgh Steelers, because, at pick number 20, they're not going to get a top quarterback in this draft unless they, go after Bo Nix or somebody like that. So Steelers can make some sense. Mike Tomlin is, a fan of Justin Fields reportedly. And then otherwise, like I think I've also heard like the Seahawks been brought up, which I know they already have Geno Smith right now, but they could be looking to move off of him pretty soon, right? Because he's 34, 35 right now, and he doesn't have that much left in the tank at this point, right? So if they want to, maybe sit Fields for a year, develop him behind Geno Smith, maybe that could work out too. But as for trade compensation, I don't think it's going to be too much more than like a late first round pick at the highest, or, a second round pick with some mid-rounders, right? Because, even though we love Justin Fields, like obviously like he's left a little bit to be desired in terms of like stats and all that. So he's not going to go for obviously like multiple firsts or a high first, but I think you could expect, a late first or a second round pick because he still has a lot of potential. He's only 24 years old. The Bears definitely did him dirty. Like we definitely do not know how to develop quarterbacks. So there's still a lot of potential left in him that another team might, want to unlock. So I do think the package could be decent because, Sam Darnold went for second round pick, fifth round pick, and more, right? So Fields should go for higher than that because he's shown more potential so far in the NFL.
Jade, a little bit of a reports that have been thrown out was a possibility of the Falcons getting involved, and their new head coach, Raheem Morris, did speak about needing the quarterback. One report suggested that the Bears move up one spot from their original 9th pick, along with Justin Fields, to move up one spot for 8th and maybe a 2nd or 3rd and a couple of other lower picks. Would you go for that deal, moving up one spot and then giving up Justin Fields, or would you rather trade Fields separately to get multiple different picks?
I mean, I think I had some debates on Twitter about this actually. What's shocking, but I I think like you guys were just saying, Fields could be worth like a late first and stuff. If you do that, all you're essentially doing is trading your first round picks by one spot, and then you're taking Fields for a second. And what do they have, like pick 45 or something in the second? So you're not even getting like a top second round pick. So I mean, like, it's not a terrible deal, but it's also kind of like, is there another team that would have a better offer than that? Like, if I was polls, I would see maybe like what is Pittsburgh offering versus just like swapping one spot in the first and then getting a second and third pick later.
Lester, what is your prediction on the timeline and the top possible destination / compensation for Justin?
Yeah, if you kind of look at what happened last year with the DJ Moore trade, the deal was made on the eve of free agency. I'm guessing probably the same thing here. I think the Bears will want to know where they stand at quarterback. Whoever trades for them will want to know where they stand at quarterback. So I think if you're going to go ahead and do that, it's going to be March 11th, I believe, is when the early negotiation period starts. But the key as far as compensation, I mean, you need more teams involved. I mean, the Falcons we heard as a front runner. It was also reported today by USA Today that the Steelers and Raiders have expressed some interest in there. We have heard the Patriots mentioned in the past. Ryan Poles needs to get as many teams, on the hook as possible to kind of maximize potential. I mean, I would love a first. I know there was some reports, a while back from Schefter, I think, mentioned something. Tom Pelissero also that if enough teams are involved, you can maybe get up to a first. I've always looked at it that, man, if they're going to get the best deal possible, whatever they can get. They're going to put them where they can put them. I would assume they want to put them in the AFC if possible. But, like Pohl said today, he's going to try and do right by Fields because he likes him and respects him so much. So Atlanta seems like the best place. I don't see a first, maybe a second. I think maybe something with some conditions on it, because wherever he goes, they're going to have to pay him. It's not going to happen right away, but if you make a deal for Fields, now Fields' agent has, hey, look, you made the deal for me. You feel I'm the guy. I want to get paid like the guy. I mean, and then the market for quarterbacks is pretty high. So I'm guessing third rounder, possibly a second if it's there.
All right, my guests tonight are Rishab Skiri, my regular guest from the YouTube's DaWindyCity Productions, Lester Wiltfong from the Windy City Gridiron SB Nation page. He is the editor-in-chief, and also actor Alexis Jade, who has her own YouTube channel and also her handle as well. You could go check it out and also follow them throughout this off season. So obviously, we are pretty much resigned to the fact that Caleb Williams could be the number one overall pick, but there are still some, questions that exist with regards to, Caleb Williams's attitude and his lack of winning records against the top five opponents, et cetera, et cetera. So, Rishab, let's start with you. Do you have any concerns about Williams like others do, or is this just basically a non-starter argument for you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do. Obviously, with every quarterback, I don't think any quarterback prospect is perfect. Besides if you're drafting Andrew Luck, and I don't think Caleb Williams per se is a generational talent because he does have flaws in his game with holding up the football sometimes a little bit too long, trying to do a little bit too much sometimes. In college, sometimes he did not play as much in structure, partly because of how bad the offense was at times and how bad the offensive line was. But there is a concern that people bring up about him not playing in structure that much, which if you're moving off of Fields, who also struggle with playing in structure, I guess you're kind of getting the same style of quarterback. But I don't have any concerns from the attitude point of view as much as other people do, because especially with the crying on the sideline, the nail painting, I don't care at all about that stuff, right? If you can play football, that's all that matters to me. I know that some people, they care about all that stuff. Maybe some NFL teams care about that stuff too, but I only really care about the football, the play on the football field. And according to everything I've read, and obviously I don't know Caleb Williams personally, and Poles is going to interview him, so he's going to know a lot more about him than I do. But according to everything I've read, he is a good leader. His teammates respected him, and he loves football, right? Like, he really loves football. That's why he was crying, after a loss, because he really wanted to win that game very badly, right? So I do get the concern that Bears fans have about him being able to handle Chicago's media, because we know Chicago's media, Chicago's fan base can be very brutal, and you have to be mentally strong to survive that. So, I think Cole is going to find out if he's mentally strong enough to handle that. But I really don't have as many concerns about the person as other people do, I feel like.
Jade, are you concerned with any of the Caleb Williams stuff off the field per se? And if there is anything that has you concerned about Williams, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, like, nothing huge, like red flag, don't draft him whatsoever. I mean, there's some small things, like, I mean, I tried to watch as much Caleb Williams, Drake May tape as I could, just to kind of compare the two and stuff. And yeah, like, I agree. I don't think he's generational. Like, there are some things already mentioned, plus, like throwing over the middle, which is huge in the NFL, something Justin Fields also struggles with, that Caleb Williams also on college tape didn't do very often. And like, I do have some concerns about his play, and like, is the hype too much because, now we're all just completely leaning into it and we've overlooked too many things? Like, I don't know. That's not my job to figure out. Like, the personality stuff, I honestly do not care if he paints his nails, if he cries. Like, that does not bother me whatsoever. I would agree. The only thing that's not concerning, but I would question if I was Poles is, when, like mentioned, Chicago is probably the hardest city to be a quarterback in ever, especially with our records. So, like, you have to have a dude in there. I mean, you're replacing Justin Fields. Like, if we trade him, you're replacing a dude who literally, there was a report, someone said it, that someone in the Bears staff said Justin Fields is the culture. So, like, that's big. Like, you got to be able to fill those shoes in the locker room, which is a big deal. And so I think these in-person interviews are going to be really important. And the only thing outside of like football that concerns me a bit is his whole not having an agent and his dad being very involved in what he does. Like, I know some people don't see it as a big deal. I don't see it as a huge deal, but it does. Like, I listened to interviews with some people who reported on him in college and stuff, and they did say like his dad was very involved. And I just wonder like how that would work with Ryan Poles. Like, how would they manage that? But yeah, no like huge concerns, but just little things.
Ryan Poles said today that he's not overly concerned about, maybe not coming directly from Caleb Williams, but his handlers having expressed concerns and not wanting to play in Chicago. That has been a massive, headlines in Chicago, and has kind of been poked around a little bit by a lot of the national pundits. But Lester, do you think that the Bears have to sell the Williams, or is it more that the Williams have to sell himself to the Bears in order to, I hate to use this term, the quote marriage between two sides to, work or be successful?
Yeah, like I said, the stuff with him not wanting to play in Chicago, that kind of came up. I'm not even sure where it originated. It might have been from someone in his family. His camp might have said something off the cuff,
Right.
Something he never said. But like you said, that has been shot down on multiple times. Brett Coleman does a great job with Bootleg Football. He just had a show recently, and he lives like right outside the USC campus. He said he's talked to a lot of people on campus, a lot of players at USC. He says there is no problems there. He's talked to people in Caleb Williams' camp. He said he has no problem with going to Chicago. So as far as do they have to sell him on Chicago? No, Chicago's a great city. I mean, yeah, the quarterback history in Chicago has been garbage. But that's something that if you're a competitor, if you're that dude, you look at that as a challenge. Because if Caleb Williams wins in Chicago, we said the same thing about Justin Fields. If you win in Chicago, you are revered, and it's it. You will never buy a drink in Chicago again. Malort on the house forever, the rest of your life. Deep dish pizza, whatever you want. No worries. If you win in Chicago, you have a family in Chicago for life.
All right. Well, I guess it's safe to say it's pretty much Caleb Williams, but there are some real weird rumors being thrown around right now that before we move on from this subject, that Greg Gabriel said it, that he's hearing rumors that the Bears are ready to trade Justin Fields and also the number 1 overall pick. So I'm going to ask all of you a question, starting with you, Jade. Drake May, JJ McCarthy, will you be happy or unhappy if that scenario plays out, and why?
I mean, I threw this idea out there like months ago, and I was like, based on how the Bears, like, what I forget the abbreviation for whatever score system they evaluate talent on, Drake May actually scores like pretty high on like the things that the Bears front office look for in a quarterback. And I threw it out there just like for fun, like, Caleb Williams seems like the sure thing number 1, but maybe we're overlooking Drake May. And I'm kind of a fan of him. I don't know, like, would I be happy? Yeah, because like you guys already said, I'm a Bears fan, so whoever the quarterback is, I'm going to root for them, and I'm intrigued by all the prospects, to be honest. But I don't know if I would be as content if we got rid of Fields and drafted May as I would be if we got rid of Fields and drafted Williams. However, I do think May is very talented, and I can see why the Bears would have him pretty high. For JJ McCarthy, I'm very intrigued by him, but I don't know if I would be comfortable us risking picking him. I think he's someone who needs to like sit behind a veteran, and he's still so young, like learn a year or two, and we're just not at that spot. I just don't think we're the spot for him, but May's an interesting one. I don't know. I like May, but yeah, I don't know. My comfort level is probably at like a 80%.
Lester, where are you on the other quarterbacks? Drake May certainly seems like a number 2 behind, Caleb. But will you be happy with May if the Bears decide to trade out of number 1?
Yeah, I mean, it's whoever the Bears have as their number 1 guy. If they evaluate him, if they talk to him, they go through all the film, they meet with him. If they come out of it and saying May is their number 1 guy, and I think it behooves them to kind of trade down off 1 and of course trade Fields if that's what they're going to do. Would I be happy with it? Yeah, I mean, it's if that's their guy, man, that's Ryan Poles' decision. You'll have to live with it. I mean, we saw Ryan Pace. He made the decision to go with Trubisky over some other quarterbacks in that class.
Yeah, and
we saw where he is now. Now he's number 2 guy in Atlanta. He lost his job. This decision is Ryan Poles'. This is it. I mean, this is what he's going to do. If he trades Fields and drafts a quarterback and the quarterback sucks, he's going to be out of a job in a couple of years. So this is a big move for Ryan Poles. And if it's May, it's May. I think I'll be fine with him. Like Jade said, there's a lot of cool stuff on his tape. He does a lot of good stuff well. I haven't really dug in a deep dive in him because it's always seemed like it's going to be Caleb. That's the one guy I kind of looked at. But if it's May, it's May.
Rishab, will you be? I know probably it's pretty much at this point Caleb or bust, but if Poles throws a curveball, will you be happy with May? And I don't think May is the kind of guy you start from day 1 at this point. But will you be? How would you feel about the if Drake May becomes the probably the 2nd overall selection or 3rd at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I'd still be happy just because I feel like Drake May still has that high upside that Caleb Williams has, and you'd be getting a lot of assets to trade back, right? Like we saw reports about Washington potentially offering multiple 1st-round picks, multiple 2nd-round picks, so you could trade back and get your quarterback. I think that would be, a cool thing for Ryan Poles. But he is the only other quarterback I'd be okay with moving on from Fields for. Like if we draft JJ McCarthy, I'm not going to be happy I don't think he has what it takes to be the franchise changing quarterback. He is a guy that you can win with. I feel like at Michigan, he had a strong run game, strong defense. Maybe in the NFL, he can be like a Kirk Cousins type of quarterback, which I guess Kirk Cousins still would be the best quarterback in Bears history. So I'm not trying to hate too much, but like we should be trying to get those franchise changing quarterbacks if we are moving on from Fields, because I feel like Fields could still be a franchise changer if we kept him. So I would only be okay with Caleb or Drake May.
Absolutely. Obviously, we talked too much about quarterbacks, and let's move on to the different subject here. Free agency is basically literally within 2 weeks away. The teams are able to start talking. The legal tampering periods 2 weeks from yesterday. So obviously, the needs that I can think of right now are probably in this particular order. Center, we definitely need a center who can snap and protect the quarterback. We need another edge rusher, edge two, to help out Montez Sweat. Wide receiver two, that's another huge need as well. Interior offensive line depth, center obviously, but the two guards, both Jenkins and Davis, they are very injury prone, unfortunately. And then also we need to get a free safety. We waved goodbye to Eddie Jackson a couple of weeks ago. So, with the free agency starting, Jade, which position do you think that the Bears will kind of start targeting in order to, make their NFL draft a little more easier?
Oh, it's hard because I don't really expect I don't know if I expect the Bears to go crazy in free agency, just because, if we do draft number 1 overall, that definitely limits what we can get in the draft. So maybe we would, but I don't know. It depends on what we are able to get in the draft. I would guess maybe depth for the interior offensive line, see who's available. I haven't really looked and seen who's going to be free agents in those categories this year that are worth paying. And it also depends on how much money are we spending on Jaylon Johnson. I think it's tough to say we're going to get anyone solid at any of these positions in free agency, in my opinion.
Lester, center, do you think they go after somebody in free agency to, bolster that interior offensive line? Certainly the idea of a rookie snapping to, Caleb Williams or Drake May, a long shot, does not seem ideal at this point right now. But what other positions do you see Bears maybe targeting in the free agency?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. There, your list. I mean, they're going to go after all those guys. I think they're going to have to double dip a little bit because if you look at the center spot right now, there's nobody there. I mean, everyone that was played at last year is a free agent or has been cut. So right now there's a huge hole there. I think they're going to go with someone, possibly Evan Brown from Seattle. I know Brad Biggs mentioned Lloyd Cushenberry of the Broncos, who I think would be an outstanding pickup. He'll probably be the most expensive center on the market. But you know what? You need a guy right there. Like you said, especially if they go with a rookie, you want to have a veteran at center you can trust. And then I think they're going to go a wide receiver. I mean, I think a receiver's in play at 9 overall. I think that's if the draft falls perfectly, that's where they go. But again, we talk about center. There's on the roster. Who's on the roster besides DJ Moore? Everyone's a free agent or not good. So I think they're going to have to address receiver. Curtis Samuel, possibly from Washington's a guy that I heard mentioned a little bit. You're going to have to find a guy. T. Higgins was just franchise tag, so he's obviously off the table. But you got to have someone there, and then of course, depth inside. I mean, they're gonna have to attack that in free agency and also in the draft as well.
Rishab, one of the biggest needs, certainly that the Bears have long been rumored this offseason, is Danielle Hunter from the Vikings and Chris Jones. Jones certainly was probably fueled by alcohol during the ceremony that he's definitely coming back. We'll see what happens. Obviously, his agent wasn't really happy about it, but Danielle Hunter, certainly somebody that we're all familiar with, playing in the NFC North the last couple of years and how good of a player he is when healthy. But would you pay $80 million for 4 years, let's say, for example, for Hunter, and maybe go bargain shopping for other positions? Or do you basically say, try to find much bargain as possible, even with the increasing salary cap?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, the Bears do have a lot of money to spend. I believe we do have around $80 million to spend right now with the salary cap increase. So we do have a lot of money to spend. But I do wonder if Ryan Poles wants to go after older guys that probably have already played their best football before this year. I think that both Danielle Hunter and Chris Jones still are going to be good for at least 2 or 3 years, but you're probably not going to get, you're risking injury, you're risking them regressing, right? So, personally, I still would be okay with paying them, because if you really want to go for it right now, build the best possible team you can around your rookie quarterback, you could do that. And Caleb Williams is not going to have a high cap hit for, a long time, 5 years from now. So you can easily afford to do that. But what I think Ryan Poles will do is build more of an all-around team, attack multiple different positions rather than just going after one position. but we'll see what happens, right? I mean, if he does want to go after another star guy, there's multiple guys out there. And Chris Jones, he helped draft him when he was with the Chiefs back in 2014, 2015, whatever that was. So connection is already there. But Chris Jones is going to be very expensive, like probably the highest paid DT in the NFL at this point. So you can probably expect above 33, 34 million, which would be a lot of money, obviously, but the Bears do have the money. So, it's up to Ryan Poles what he wants to do.
Right. Reports out of Kansas City here is that they're tagging franchise tag on L'Jarius Sneed, certainly worthy of a big contract after a phenomenal season in the Super Bowl he had. So, obviously, if the Chiefs are going to be able to keep Jones, they're going to have their works cut out. So we'll see what happens there. We spoke so much about the first overall pick, and the Bears do own another pick, which is their own at 9th overall. So my guess is that if Caleb Williams or Drake May if Caleb Williams goes 1, and then if God forbid, Washington moves up to get a hometown star in Williams, and the Bears move down to 2 for Drake May, they will have a 9th overall pick. But if they stick at Williams at 1 and at 9, I would have a feeling that because of the lack of picks, and certainly Williams is the franchise quarterback that Ryan Poles sees that can elevate the Chicago Bears. My guess is that maybe 70-80% 9th pick will likely be moved down for somebody who wants a quarterback, or maybe an offensive line player like Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu. But Lester, where do you put the odds of the Bears moving their 9th overall pick as we get closer to the NFL draft?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good odds. It all depends who's there. I mean, if one of those receivers are there, Malik Neighbors from LSU, Rome Odunze from Washington, to me, that's a no-brainer. If one of those guys are still there at 9, you got to pull the trigger there. It's going to be interesting to see how the draft falls. I mean, we heard a lot of stuff about J.J. McCarthy possibly moving into the top 10. Daniels from LSU. I mean, if 3 or 4 quarterbacks go early, then you already mentioned 2 of the top tackles. Maybe one of the receivers now falls. I mean, of course, Marvin Harrison's going to be the first receiver taken, but if one of those receivers there, you pull the trigger. I think if the receivers are all gone, like you said, I think then you may want to trade back, pick up some draft picks, and then at that point, everything's on the table. And I think if you go trade back into the teens, now edge is on the table. Center could be back on the table if you trade back that far. It all depends on how the board falls, but it's like you said, like we're all saying, man, it's an exciting time because they have so many options there.
Jade, obviously, the receiver too is a huge position of need. Even if we do sign somebody like Curtis Samuel in free agency, like Lester mentioned earlier, certainly a lot has to work in the Bears' favor. So but at the same time, this year's wide receiver class is considered to be deep. So are you comfortable maybe moving 5, 6, or even 10 spot, depending on who wants to move up and what they want to give up to, get that far for receiver or somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I already said, I kind of think my guess right now would be that the trade back happens because it depends what wide receivers are there. Now, if by some miracle, somehow Marvin Harrison Jr. is sitting at number 9, which would never happen, then yeah, you draft Marvin Harrison Jr. But realistically, I think depending how it shakes out, we're going to end, especially knowing how much Poles values, draft picks. I mean, if we get a second, let's say we do Atlanta and we get a 45th pick in the second round for Fields, that's great, but we still don't have much going on in between there. So I'd imagine Poles, being comfortable seeing what else is there, how the wide receivers fall, going a few spots. I don't think, crazy all the way back, but I think he'd be comfortable moving a few spots back to just gain a little bit more capital.
Rishab, if some odd reasons, if Neighbors or Odunze, probably the number 2, number 3 receivers are still there at 8 or 9, let's say, for example, who's your favorite out of those 2 and why?
Oh, I'm happy with either, man. I think both are like equally as good in some ways. Maybe I might put Neighbors a little bit above Odunze just because I think he was more productive last year. I'll have to go back and check the stats, but it does seem like both of them are being hyped up, like, almost equally as good. I know some people are putting Neighbors on the same level as Marvin Harrison Jr. I forgot who released that. It was like some NFL reporter talked about that potentially being the case in his grades. So maybe Neighbors, but like I'll be okay with either, right? Because both of them I feel like can be number one options. Both would be big upgrades over Darnell Mooney from last year at receiver number 2, and could be receiver number 1s after DJ Moore, retires eventually, or if he leaves Chicago ever, God forbid. So I'd be very happy with either, I'd say.
Lester, do you agree with that assessment, or do you feel more favorable towards one or the other?
No, I'm the same way. I like both. I think both bring different things to the table. With Rome, he's a little bigger. With Neighbors, he's a little better yards after the catch. They're both outstanding, and they will both fill a need in Chicago. I mean, DJ Moore is your Z. He does a lot of stuff. He moves around. Rome would be your bigger X. Neighbors kind of do a little bit of both. So get a receiver. You need a receiver. I mean, it's a passing league. I mean, that's the whole point of we're having this quarterback discussion anyway, because you're looking for a better passer. The era of winning with defense and running the ball, although I love that era, it's over.
Sure.
It is what it is. I mean, the Joe Flacco's, those guys don't win titles. Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, those guys, it just doesn't happen anymore. You can't really do it as much as possible. Yeah, you catch lightning in a bottle once in a while, but
sure.
Upgrade that offense, get the best receiver possible to pair with whoever the quarterback is.
Jade, you're going to be happy with either one, or do you have any kind of a preferential for either one?
No, I'm on the same page. Get us another receiver, please. It's just not working.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. A couple more segments with the guests tonight. Rishab Skiri, Lester Wiltfong, the editor-in-chief from Windy City Gridiron, and also actor Alexis Jade, also a Bears fan with her own YouTube channel, joining us to talk about the Bears off season. So obviously, it wasn't just Ryan Poles who spoke today. Matt Eberflus spoke today as well. A lot of us are kind of, let's be honest, kind of had a weird feeling, or just was somewhat disappointed, with the return of Matt Eberflus, considering the way he blew 3 games that could have, solidified himself and certainly put the Bears in a much better position, in the playoffs. And certainly maybe we're not even having this conversation, even if the Bears had a number 1 overall pick, but because at least Justin Fields showed enough improvements to help the Bears win 10 games or so. But obviously I digress there. But Jade, from the time, Matt Eberflus was officially brought back to where he is today, right now, what is your comfort level with Matt Eberflus being brought back, and what else do you want him to do better at?
I mean, I'm sure you could go back on my tweets from like the week 3 of the season and see me, I don't know if I was ever yelling for him to be fired, but I definitely wasn't happy with him. But how the season ended, I mean, yeah, the 3 losses where we blew the lead suck, and I do think some of that falls on coaching, some of that falls on the players. But I'm okay with retaining Flus. I mean, at the end of the day, I get why they did it. Like, I think it would have been hard to move on from him. But at the same time, if we do go the route of drafting a quarterback, I can see why people would argue, if we were going to do that, why didn't we just get a different head coach? But I think the way he transformed the defense, if you're Ryan Poles, Kevin Warren, it's going to be really hard to just be like, you know what, this guy totally transformed our defense, but we're moving on from him. Like, he's not an offensive head coach, and he messed up by suggesting Luke Getsy, but they clearly, I think, are making up for it. I mean, we have yet to see it play out, but making up for it this offseason with the offensive coaching department, essentially, they're putting together. So I do have high hopes for it, but I also had high hopes for Luke Getsy. So, I mean, I'm going to wait to see how it all plays out, see who the quarterback is. But, I also think, as much as we all kind of like make fun of not Luke Getsy, how Matt Eberflus talks in pressers and everything else, I do think he's different when he's talking to the players. And I do think, there's always the potential that like maybe the Bears found a diamond in the rough with Matt Eberflus. Like maybe in a few years from now, we'll be in like, dang, this dude's a good head coach, and he just needed a bit of time to get his bearings. I think it's just too early to be like, nah, he's not a good head coach.
Lester, one of the biggest problems that I've always had with Matt Eberflus as the head coach, and you probably listened to his pressers, leading up to the game, as well as the ones in the post games, is that he doesn't take that much of an accountability. He's always been complaining about the lack of execution, which seems like he's laying the blame all on the players. But when you're a head coach, you and your entire coaching staff are responsible for making sure those things don't happen. And that's one reason why I was so pissed about Eberflus being brought back and all of that. But do you agree with my gripe with Eberflus, or do you have anything else other than what I said that really kind of concerns you about Matt Eberflus as the head coach moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, there are several instances in sound bites where he kind of throws players into the bus.
Yeah.
I don't think he's doing it on purpose. I think he's just not a very good public speaker. And I think sometimes it comes off where he's a little goofy and it kind of comes out wrong. And I think behind the scenes, he's able to kind of express himself, use a lot more colorful language with his players. I think they understand where he's coming from. So I think that's just part of it. It's just who he is as a person. But, like was also said, he was very conservative. I think he was the reason why they lost some of those games.
Yeah.
He got conservative down the stretch on defense. Luke Getsy got conservative down the stretch on offense. Flus, the head coach, he's making the ultimate call there. But like Jay said, I mean, if he may have grown as a coach. I mean, he may be one of these guys where it just takes some time to kind of get his footing. I think with the offensive staff he has now, I also like the Getsy hire. I thought it was going to be a really good hire. I thought he was bringing some good concepts over. The problem is we never saw him. I mean, he didn't run the offense that Flus talked about, preseason that year. We didn't see it. So I think he has an offense in place now in Shane Waldron. I think he has a good infrastructure for the quarterback, a really good offensive coaching staff, experience level, guys that have kind of brought things along and kind of taught that scheme. I think the Bears are in a pretty good place. And I know I was like a lot of people, like, if you're going to get a rookie quarterback, let's not do the same thing again, where you bring back the lame duck coach. But the fact that they let him fire the entire offensive staff, and those guys are still getting paid. I mean, it wasn't like they had 2-year contracts. Those guys are still have some contract to get paid out here, and now you're bringing in a whole new offensive staff and paying those guys. I don't think Flus is on the hot seat. I think he's pretty safe and secure. I mean, they're not going to fire him and his whole offensive staff who he just gave deals to. So I think he's safe and secure unless the bottom falls off completely. I think Flus is going to be safe, and I think he's going to be here for a few more years.
Rishab, you and I have had this long conversations about the Eberflus' shortcomings in the future and everything. But based on the hiring of both offensive coordinator Shane Waldron, and somehow, we want to talk more about we haven't talked enough about Eric Washington, somebody who is familiar with the Bears organization, has also done a very good job working with Buffalo the last couple of years, and now he's the DC. Despite Matt Eberflus is the one that will likely be calling, defense this upcoming season. Do you feel more encouraged that maybe Eberflus is kind of learned from his mistakes, or at least going to learn from his mistakes, and that the way he's looked, out the, growing a, beard and look a little more stylish out there seems maybe, looks like he's a little more loose, and perhaps maybe he knows that he does have some sort of a backing from both Kevin Warren and more importantly, Ryan Poles to, he does have maybe a little longer leash than some people want to, and that maybe Eberflus has a chance to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the new look, with how he's talking to the media, I feel like he's a lot more confident now in himself, which is good. Like, a confident coach is a good, a better coach. And I think after like growing the beard out with with new hairstyle, I think the confidence level rose from a 5 to 7 just based on pure looks. So much better now. But yeah, from a football point of view, all the hires that he did make, like you said, like convinced me that maybe he did learn from his previous mistakes, because he hired an OC that had prior play calling experience, which Luke Getsy never had. I think that was the one thing that us Bears fans were kind of hesitant about, even though we were pretty optimistic about hiring Luke Getsy. He was still a complete unknown because he had never called plays himself in the NFL. Shane Waldron has had, top offenses with the Geno Smith, who he basically revived the career of, right? And Eric Washington has had a lot of success building up really strong defensive lines, and he's not going to be calling plays, but he's still a fantastic player developer, right? And down the stretch last year, like Eberflus's defense, I feel like we forget to talk about this. They were like a top 5 defense down the stretch in many categories, like interceptions. They were number 1 down the stretch. They got like 4 turnovers per game, basically, right? So I think adding more talent to this defense could really make this defense like a top 5 defense for sure the entire season. And if the offense can be at least like average with the rookie quarterback, I think the Bears could win decent amount of games. Like, I'm not expecting a Super Bowl appearance or, maybe playoff wins or anything, but the Bears could contend for the number 7 seed, or maybe even more, if the defense can play as well as they were down the stretch last year.
You're looking at the brand new Matt Eberflus with a beard right now, and it certainly looks a little more comfortable right there. And obviously, Nicholas Moriano doing a great job with all CHGO, and he's talking about what he's looking for in a quarterback, about being a winner and leader, resilient, have to handle criticism, physical traits and accuracy and timing. But certainly, we can read a lot into what he's definitely saying there. But guys, certainly, we have a long ways to go before, we know the answers to who's the quarterback, who will it be, and all for it, because I don't think no one can exactly draw a 100% conclusion based on what we saw. But, it does, for me at least, as I said earlier, it does seem as though, the trade of Justin Fields is somewhat imminent, and it's probably in the best interest of both sides. And certainly, no matter what happens, I am still, going to be the Chicago Bears fans through and through. And, I've lived through some bad quarterbacks, and I think all of us, unfortunately, went through some, bad quarterbacks, throughout our time. Certainly, I'm not going to abandon just because they traded away, Justin Fields and, drafted Caleb Williams. If it's Drake May or Jaden Daniel, I do have some serious questions. There's no denying that, but it is an absolute honor for all of you to join me tonight. I know certainly Lester and Rishab, thankfully, you were able to get through, the difficult weather periods. So I really appreciate it. Before we close out the show, I'm going to give a plug on Alexis. Certainly follow her on Twitter there. That's her handle. Please make sure to keep it civil and clean. Obviously, she has, has her followers, and certainly has her own live show as well. Alexis, when are you doing your next live stream?
That's to be determined. I had some family stuff come up, and I had to put a bunch of stuff on hiatus, however you want to say it. But hopefully soon. I was planning either this upcoming weekend or weekday of coming here soon. But yeah, I'm actually just realized I'm going to be on vacation during the draft. So
Really?
I will be staying away from, I'm kind of bummed, but also I'll be away from the Bears Twitter civil war that happens on draft night. So
will you be in the country still, or will you be out of the country?
No, I will be out of the country. So whole different time zone, everything. I will be unplugged.
Wow, holy cow. It says you're an actor. Do you have any notable acting gigs that you want to plug in, or that you've been done in the past?
I don't know any that people would be interested in. I wouldn't say it fits the niche of many people who watch football, or most people who are probably watching this stream. I've done it since I was like 15. I've been in a lot of things that you probably have never seen, and probably should, because some of it is not great. So, like, being honest, there's been some stuff I've been super proud of, and some stuff I'm like, oh God, that one can just like disappear off the face of the earth. So, but
Look it up on,
like
IMDb and stuff.
I
like
have,
that.
yeah, I have an IMDb. I have some stuff in the works, but those are all in like production. They're not, you're not able to see them right now. And when they go to like film festival and stuff. They're not like mainstream right now or anything.
Thank you, Alexis. We look forward to having you on again before you leave the country to, get a little bit of more
to get away.
but also discuss a little bit more about the free agency and the draft as well. Lester, we all know you from Windy City Gridiron SB Nation page. What are some of the articles you have working on right now, and also for the future as well?
I mean, there's something fresh every day. I mean, I know that I'm working on a fields thing right now. It's just to get it up there. I've been working at the real job all day, so trying to catch up on some of the stuff I missed out on the press earlier stuff. But we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Obviously, the draft. Jacob Infante does most of our draft coverage for us. Free agency stuff's coming right on the corner. I know, like I said, it's always something. Whether it's at the site Windy City Gridiron or on our video channel Second City Gridiron, and of course our podcast stuff's all Windy City Gridiron. So you can find us anywhere that podcasts are available.
Cool. Rishab, you're a regular guest with us, and I've been very, very fortunate to do this on a weekly basis as well. You have your also YouTube channel as well. Any latest video that you have posted, or is there anything you're kind of working for the future?
Yeah, not doing anything currently. I'll probably post like a Justin Fields goodbye video when that inevitably happens in a few days or weeks.
Yeah,
I did post like a mock offseason video where I just went through my like projected moves for the Bears, so you can check that out if you guys want to. But otherwise, nothing in the works right now. But as Bears news breaks, I'll be giving my reaction as well, obviously.
Well, thank you very much, Rishab. I look forward to having you on again, possibly next week, or depending on your schedule when the free agency officially kind of kicks off as well. On behalf of Lester Wiltfong, Alexis Jade, and Rishab Skiri, I am Stephen Negishi. I thank you for joining all three of the guests tonight, and also thank you for watching and listening to our live stream. And we hope to have you on again down the road. Thank you very much, and so long, everybody.
Thanks.